All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to another expert session number 109. Hendrik, amazing, huh? So today we're going to speak about Nigeria go-to-market and the next layer of commerce growth. First and foremost, speak about our sponsors, VTEX, Airmeet, and Acclaim. They have a new name, Acclaim. So thank you for making this possible. And what is Evolve? Evolve is a global private network operating layer connecting senior commerce leaders, advisors, founders, investors, and operators across markets. The sessions are designed to surface operational realities, market shifts, and strategic patterns shaping commerce globally, often before they become obvious in mainstream industry conversations. So our expert today is Emmanuel Ibok, go-to-market and revenue strategist operating across Nigeria's commercial ecosystems. His work focuses on market entry, revenue operations, go-to-market execution, distribution strategy, commercial growth inside mobile-first markets. Well, Nigeria is increasingly difficult to ignore from a commerce perspective. The country has 220 million plus people, 103 million internet users, 140 million mobile connections, an e-commerce market estimated between 15 and 20 billion USD, according to the latest stat that I found. So, Emmanuel, you can please correct me. And over 700 billion USD in electronic transactions. And yet, many international commerce companies still approach the market with assumptions imported from Europe and the US. So this session explores that gap. Emmanuel, this is your first time here. We always start our conversations with let's say, a controversial opening question. The question for you is, are commerce companies underestimating Nigeria, or are they trying to force mature market, go-to-market assumptions into a market that evolved differently?
That's a great question, Carlos, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. For me, I would say there's a lot of underestimation, and it's not something that started in recent time. It's always been the trend. I remember sitting down in all hands meeting back at Intel decades ago, and when I listened to how the leaders of the time would think of executing and going across international markets, it was always silent. And I remember even then, as a young trainee, I raised my hands up and I said, "Sir, is there a plan for this company to expand tentacles into Nigeria?" And the response was like, "No, not yet." And that not yet continued till this very day. So I would say there's a lot of underestimation, and that's some of the things that we hope to correct as we bring this knowledge to the fore.
Amazing. So let's speak about the Nigeria most outsiders do not see. So what do outsiders fundamentally misunderstand about Nigeria? Let's start there. And then I'd love to have Berengere and Hendrik, asking questions. Hendrik here, South Africa specialist and analyst. Berengere, she has an amazing background as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, one of the first things is how mature the market is. I remember I was on vacation in Malta last year, and I met this gentleman who was in the gaming sector, and he was considering the Nigerian market. And the first thing he said but the problem is that the payment. And I said, "What do you mean by the payment?" He said, "They don't have credit cards." I said, "We have one of the most mature payment infrastructure. In fact, you don't even need credit cards to transact in Nigeria, because the banking transfer system can move in seconds. So you give me your bank account, I put money, and in seconds, in fact, milliseconds, your POS is getting pinged. And because of the trust factor of the market, there are many layers that have been integrated where you don't even have to second guess. So once you do the transfer, the POS on the other side is like, bang, you hear exactly that your money is gone on the other side instantly. And this is one area that is always misunderstood, the maturity of the financial sector. The other side, of course, is the mobile first. And most people will know, and I try to keep this conversation away from the theory because I'm sure we all can read that. But, when you look at how the Nigerian system evolved, and maybe Africa, but I want to be very focused here, we skipped the desktop age and went straight up to mobile. So what's happened is that we have such a deep mobile penetration. The average person has 2, 3 devices, partly because, of course, the telcos are shit, but that's a different story. And so you have like multiple devices all at once happening. I mean, I have two on my phone on my table right now as we speak. So you're even able to meet people at different touch points, with the mobile integration that they have. So that's another area that I want to call out, the mobile readiness of the country. And then it's also a very conversational commerce country. And, recently brands are moving e-commerce towards conversational commerce. You would find a market that's already conversational commerce ready because it's a warm culture. People like to interact, people like to ask questions. And even when the answer is obvious, people like to clarify it because, again, that trust factor is something they worry about. And so you're going to find people who want to talk more to you. And if you have a conversational commerce infrastructure, you're really going to find people who just use it without any steep adoption.
Amazing. So, Hendrik, I think you will have a hard stop at some point. Hendrik, we'll start with you and then I'll move to Berengere. So perhaps you want to ask your first question. If I could ask you also, again, to bring some insights from South Africa to compare with what he's saying about Nigeria there, I think would be super relevant. Prosus now, it's a former Naspers company, right? I remember PayU being a payment company. Not sure if they would be in Nigeria. I presume so. Go ahead.
So from what Emmanuel explained, sounds like a carbon copy of South Africa in the sense that I would go as far to say that the typical emerging market playbook like India, China, has happened here in the sense that because cabled internet and broadband is expensive, one, people don't have, in some cases, a computer. Two, they don't have a credit card. But in South Africa, we've got very expensive broadband, which makes my head spin. We have a very well-developed retail ecosystem, but e-commerce is only like it's less than 5% of total retail. So I think one of the points that I wanted to add to what Emmanuel said is that when I was in Nigeria many moons ago, I will always remember seeing local Nigerians, one, like you said, have multiple phones, or they use mobile phones that have multiple networks, SIM cards on them, so that they can leverage the benefits of that network without having to spend additional money for it. So we are just like Emmanuel said when he mentioned his experience at Intel. South Africa is in most cases, by most international companies, not on their radar because it's a market that's deemed too small. When you have US or Australian or European brands come in, they do what they know. I would agree that the African consumer is not the consumer that's found in Europe, Latin America, potentially similar to Latin America, but I would say that these are growth markets where if you do your homework and you offer services that people want, you will find loyal customers that are wanting great experiences because they have money to spend.
Yeah, I think that's a very important insight. Maybe I'll share something about Brazil later. I think it's very similar. Of course, there are nuances, but I see similarities also from a cultural standpoint. Berengere, perhaps you have questions and yeah, your perspective there.
Yeah, no, thank you. I have well, I think a few questions because I feel one of the things I wanted to ask Emmanuel, and because this is really interesting to think about, don't think about Nigeria or South Africa as nations in terms of internet. Think about more the future. because they're already mobile. They already have payment, through a bank account on the mobiles. So think really more from the future. So I think to go one step further in terms of defining what is the customer experience there. If you think about a typical purchase made online in Nigeria, how it will work. So we can assume it's on mobile, but how would people will find the item first? What type of delivery or payments will be used? What are the different actors to go, from the finding the item to get the item delivered?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, Berengere, and I hope I pronounced your name well as well.
Thank you.
The first thing is Nigeria, it's a very social society. And, in my days in sociology, when I look at some of these things, they come back to play in how business functions. Because the country is a very social, warm culture. It also translates in how they discover products. So you would realize that companies will prioritize social media channels as their discovery touch points, as compared to trying to use the standard European playbook of email targeting or whatever. It's more of a social element. That's mostly your entry point. Not to say that other entry points are not possible, but you're going to see a much more socially led discovery point. The other thing that also comes into prominence is that, Nigerians are also very perceptive, and oftentimes the perception comes from the experience of other people around them. So it's easy for you to, like Hendrik said, these people, they have the capacity to buy, and they are also very loyal. So once you're able to establish the trust with one person, the person goes on to advocate for you irrespective of any gains. And so you're able to catch more people coming in just simply because one person trusts you enough to go out there and talk about what you do. So discovery is very social and also very referral driven. And that's one thing to talk about. The other thing is that when you think about the e-commerce channel, oftentimes it's not the exact streamline of go to an e-commerce platform and buy. There's also the conversational layer. So if a guy feels they can write you on WhatsApp and directly pay you the money through a bank transfer, they don't see a reason why they should jump on your e-store and go through the whole drama to finally check out. They have the money, they will pay you immediately. Just talk to them on WhatsApp and tell them all they need to know to make that payment, right? So it's also something where and that's what happens when I try to advise customers in the market. I say, build a standard track, anticipating people who will follow that track, but also appreciate the fact that the culture also enables other streams of discovery all the way down to post-sales experience.
Emmanuel, I think one aspect that you're saying that I can relate a lot to Brazil in that case, and probably it's an emerging market thing. It's like that those markets, they leapfrog sort of, they go directly to the mobile, let's say, economy, and then you can pay there. And I mean, I would argue that we are way more advanced than many European economies. People just don't realize this. Like in Germany, you still have to pay using cash, which is ridiculous in many locations, So tell me a bit about this conversational layer. Like in Brazil, this is massive in terms of perhaps integrations. You mentioned also discoverability, search. So I was doing some research before we talked to you. Jumia, I'm not sure how I pronounce it. It's the main marketplace. Could you tell us, what should I be aware of, or what should I pay attention if I'm looking at Nigeria as my next market? What are the building blocks that I should be aware of in my go-to-market? So yes, conversational commerce. How about marketplaces? How about bank integrations? Could you perhaps give us a 360 overview from a brand perspective, but also from a vendor perspective?
Yeah, so from a brand perspective, I believe the first thing that we have to appreciate, and again, leaning back to what Hendrik said, is it's a different kind of people. And the way they perceive is as valid as the perception anywhere else, right? And you just referenced in Germany. I remember when I was one of my old employers, I think that's something that shocked them, because when they were trying to move into Germany from the US, they came with a very aggressive approach to penetration, and they realized that they realized that Germany was not the country where you just come in. People need to build trust. People need to feel comfortable. People need to feel like they can give you their data. It's the same with Nigeria. I believe that the starting point is to appreciate the culture for what it is. And there's a lot of informality, but it's not in itself a lack of formality. It's just the people who believe that if things can be executed informally, why do we need to build a formal system around it? That's the first perception that I will call out for any brand looking to come into Nigeria. The second part there is the user experience. So as much as possible, you want the user experience to be as seamless as possible. If you can take 2 steps to get to the endpoint, make it 2 steps. There's no need to add other layers and other factors. It's also a country where people are not so data sensitive, at least until this point. So people are willing to give you their phone numbers at the first time of asking. People don't mind giving you their emails as long as you're not gonna, use it for something fraudulent. So it's also easy for you to build the required data without all the elements from the Western world where you need to make people feel safe. I'm not going to use a number to do this. You have to do that and sign all of these things off. People can easily give you that data if they feel comfortable that it's towards your business objectives. So that's another layer. When you're thinking about the infrastructures, for now, the payment rail Paystack is doing really well. They're able to connect. And one of the things that they bring to the table that I don't see many Western payment gateways do is not only do they afford you the credit card element, they also afford you the bank transfer element. So if you don't have a credit card, that does not stop you from paying. You can just say pay with bank transfer. It generates a temporary bank detail. You pay into that account and it knows automatically that you made that payment, and in a few seconds, you're done. So even for the guys who don't have credit cards or who don't want to have credit cards, they're still able to transact with you as well. And then the other element, which is the post-sales and the post-execution, Nigerians are very big on review, and we're also very vocal. And we're also very quick to get on social media and shit on your brand if they were not happy with the solution. So I think that's also something that's important to think about, how those kind of perceptions are managed and how to arrest it before it escalates, because the social system in Nigeria is one that can easily go viral. I can tell you that for free. So if you mistakenly be on the wrong side and you don't arrest it quick enough, you can easily get yourself doing a lot of PR damage instead of taking advantage of a moment to show that you're more brand that's thoughtful about people's experience. So with these things in mind, I hope I'm able to capture from the discovery all the way down to the experience. Of course, there are deeper layers, but I'm sure that as the conversation unpacks, we can talk more about them.
Sure. Hendrik, any remarks there?
So I would add to that. So one, from a commerce standpoint, the dominant platform is Jumia. They're a publicly listed entity. They have struggled to generate profit. I would add to what Emmanuel has said is that I think one of the biggest misunderstandings I continue to see is that you don't have a local team that understands the culture of the Nigerian people. That's a massive fail for me. I continue to see that. I just wanted to call out the company that Emmanuel mentioned. Paystack was acquired by Stripe for $200 million. They also have the user base here down in South Africa. So mobile money is a reality. I think from the discovery standpoint, I totally echo what he said with regards to social media. From experience, I can tell you that traditional customer acquisition is done in the United States and in Europe via search engine marketing fails. People are not used to that. You can spend all kinds of money, but it's not going to generate the ROI that you want. I can tell you that from experience. I think the biggest I think the biggest challenge, or not challenge, what the biggest opportunity for brands to understand is that, and this is just one of those emerging market things that are just, it's a fact, is that like in South Africa and Nigeria, marketplaces are where customers primarily start their search unless it's on social. They trust the marketplaces to deliver the goods because that's what they promise, number one. Number two, the one thing I'd like to add to what Emmanuel said about mobile money. When Jumia launched in Nigeria, they initially offered cash on demand payment for customers, which ended up being a massive security risk, which led to crime skyrocketing. I think in hindsight, they were late to adopt mobile integration for mobile money, which I think harmed them, because mobile money in Africa is just a very large chunk of transaction that you cannot say no to. I would also add that the one thing that I'd add to what Emmanuel also said is that there are various large publications or forums where Nigerians go to daily to get their daily news. So the points of the touch points for marketing in Nigeria is very different compared to Europe and the US. So from a brand strategy standpoint, not understanding the local culture will let you spend money incorrectly to gain customers. But I think the biggest challenge with Nigeria, and it's once again, it's an emerging market challenge, is that local infrastructure is different to what is seen as the norm. Jumia had to build a warehouse because it didn't exist. So getting goods shipped to consumers is hard because not everybody has an address. But these things are not new. It's seen in multiple markets. And the essential driver of success, Carlos, to answer your question, becomes mobile. Can you find that person via geo-targeting or just good old, you know, geo-targeting, but also just, you know, latitudes, so that you can find the person and deliver to them? That's a very big challenge that I still see brands not understanding.
Perfect. Thank you, Hendrik. Very insightful. Berengere, we're going to move on to a discussion about marketplaces, which is right up your alley here. So the question I have about marketplaces, platforms, and infrastructure for you, and then I like also Berengere to kind of co-lead this, is so what role do marketplaces like Jumia, and I have another name here, Konga, actually play? Yeah. And the other question is, if Nigeria is becoming a marketplace-led, and I think we see this movement in at least Brazil, definitely, you know, marketplaces are really, really important. So if you're a brand, you cannot disregard them. And how fragmented is the ecosystem? So Emmanuel, please bring your wisdom, and then Berengere contribute here as well. Thanks.
Yeah, great stuff. And just to echo Hendrik, everything he said makes a lot of sense. The experience he had living in Nigeria kind of really shows in the things he expresses. But to Nigeria.
Is it just for me?
And the guys who are driving things. Can you hear me?
Can you? I lost you when you said for Nigeria, and then sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, is it good now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We could. We could. But while he's away.
Yeah.
Berengere, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that this is fascinating because there was a lot of different questions. Also within what Hendrik said, we talked about being social first, not being able to use the typical acquisition system or acquisition line that we have. All of that. So then I'm actually wondering, and Emmanuel, you're back, so I can ask you directly my question. Is if we think about using selling to to people in Nigeria from using marketplaces, is it a good thing, or actually is it easier to do directly on social? Because
I mean,
the
I think it
people
goes
are on
down to
social.
like the scale.
Yeah.
So obviously, you're doing like small scale commerce where you don't necessarily need the small scale commerce where you don't necessarily need the structure of data and that whole personalization. Then of course, conversational commerce like WhatsApp or social DMs, this can suffice. But of course, when you get to a certain size, then you either want to look at 2 tracks, which typically happens in the market, and that's to use like real marketplaces. Chodek, for example, is doing fantastic as a marketplace. GG is doing, again, great as a marketplace as well. I think GG came from South Africa. It used to be OLX and then evolved. And then you have Jumia, like Carlos already mentioned at the beginning. So these are like marketplaces where you can, piggyback off, have an account, people go there and buy anyways. On the flip side, if you're a brand that, wants some sort of like personalization, you can also create your own marketplace. And as long as the discovery is done correctly, people are gonna, get on your platform and buy. There are also more emerging marketplaces coming up, like Seller.com. Seller.com came out like during the pandemic, and it's now a prominent place to sell digital solutions. So people who sell books and creative solutions, they use that as well. So the marketplace decisions is also, I take it down from 3 layers. One of them is the size. The size determines if you want to stay social. And then after a certain size, then it's the investment appetite. Do you want to leverage existing marketplaces, have an account and just stay there? Or do you want to, own your own infrastructure and be more in control? So it just depends on appetite and investment decisions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have another question, but maybe if we took an example, Emmanuel.
All right.
Well, let's consider that is here you're talking to a DTC brand that have a wonderful, eco-friendly and very nice new toothbrush and toothpaste actually. How a company like this, which had a brand already there, which had some specificity in the market, they're not Unilever, they're not Procter, it's a different type of product, and they want to say, okay, we are selling direct to consumer through social media in the UK or in Germany. How can we then try our luck in Nigeria?
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, you're talking about a toothbrush, eco-friendly toothbrush trying to penetrate Nigeria. That's the product, right? So if I would angle that, I would do 2 things actually. I would have, because again, trust factor is a big deal in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have a presence that is, when people want to verify a single source of truth, my platform is that platform, because that's really how you establish the trust. Yeah. I will have my presence in also marketplaces where people already go to, because that means that discoverability is quicker as compared to having people to find a new brand that they don't know before. And then I would leverage socials. So like Hendrik said, there are a few platforms where most Nigerians go get their news from.
Yeah.
These platforms have the ability to blow you up. And I mean blow here in terms of make you successful, not bomb you. So they have this capability. And so that's also where I would leverage in terms of the social discovery. So you use those platforms and those micro influencers, if I would say, to kind of create that awareness. And then you create presence in as many touch points as possible. So the guys who have the familiarity with the Jumias and the GGs they can easily find you there. And then you have your own platform where, just in case someone has some bit of a doubt, they can always look you up and know that it's a legit business.
Yeah, that's great. Interestingly, this also be a very good strategy in more established markets, to use the marketplaces as a way to get the people that are here, that go to the marketplaces, but then also have your own website or your own platform to build the trust into your brand for getting the real old customer. So I think what is really interesting here is that, and you said it a few times, the social, everything is about social, actually, in terms of discovery, but also trust, and as well as the regulation. You said about being a bad actor, being completely, instantly being picked up as a social problem. So that's also mean that from working on a country like this, you learn a lot to work on other countries, emerging or not. And I think that's quite interesting in terms of a playbook for a strategy.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So we reached 31 minutes. I'm going to speak about, we're going to move on to the next block, which is go-to-market and revenue strategy. The questions are, so what does successful go-to-market require in Nigeria? I think one of the topics you touched is understanding that conversational commerce, WhatsApp strategy, having some sort of conversational commerce strategy in place is important. But I think also speaking about some assumptions that break for international companies, and why not localization? I mean, that's Hendrik mentioned being people on the ground who understand the country, and I would say that is true for most markets that I've done international expansion. Like I would say it's common sense, right? When you're an international, you know nothing, so you're gonna rely on. He dropped again. But we can continue here on this topic, at least for now. Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
The localization topic and go to market. So what breaks, and what needs localization?
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't approach it as a one size fit all, because it plays across, right? And for example, in Nigeria, you can see D2C products that they have physical activations where there is like a truck, and there are dancers, and there are people, and they are playing music, and they're like and it's just going on across the street, and then they are giving out their conversion touch point, if it's a flyer or a product or whatever. And it really happens. I mean, the thing is, it's not too alien, this thing, in Europe, because we still see them in city centers as some little stall where people talk to you. The only difference is that here, because the regulations are quite fair, you can actually make a lot of noise on the street and do like 5-10 kilometers just telling people about your product. And obviously, driving that awareness. So it depends on the kind of product. If it's a product that people can engage very easily, or where the buying decision is something that does not require a lot of thoughts behind it, then obviously physical activations like that is what so many brands leverage. I remember last year I was in Lagos. They had an event. It was Jameson. Actually, Jameson is a big brand here. It's an Irish brand. It's such a big brand here. And they were having an activation. How did they do the activation? They just created a little corner and made a party. That was it. And people just went in there and just partied the hell out of themselves. But obviously, Jameson was selling drinks in the process. So, the way you penetrate the market also comes down to what you're obviously selling. Another way that is quite common, I don't know if you're familiar with a brand called OneXpert. OneXpert basically just penetrated Nigeria by being in the faces of all these platforms that provide comedy. So they infuse their message into comedy with the comedians, and we love to laugh. So we're always consuming this content every now and then. So guess what? Every of these guys, when they give you comedy, part of what they will tell you is OneXpert. And in no time, OneXpert became like one of the household names when you think about betting in Nigeria. So again, these social points, these interactive points, you see them across layers, whether you're consuming them through individuals that people naturally go to, or through like these platforms where people consume information from, like Hendrik said, or through physical interactions like the physical activation I just talked about. All these touch points creates that awareness. And the good thing is, once you're able to create a base critical mass, it spirals because people naturally go on to talk about it, advocate for you're knee deep in the market. Obviously, the product has to do with the job, right? Just to add that part, it's not automatic.
No, super interesting. Hendrik, any comments there or remarks, and then Berengere.
So I've seen firsthand the success of using local ambassadors to grow your brand inside the communities. I've also seen brands use traditional media like bus stop advertising to gain, that initial interest from Nigerian consumers. Because as I said, traditional digital marketing doesn't really work in Nigeria. But I think I think Emmanuel called out something that I sometimes just shake my head over because I just don't see brands thinking about this. But I think understanding how your brand fits into the Nigerian culture is kind of a big deal. And understanding how that specific category is marketed currently to the Nigerian population is a big deal. I know I'm stating the absolute obvious things here, but the point for me remains is that I would add that I think you also need to understand that there are various local dialects, languages. One of the clients that I worked with and I also worked at, we translated a large degree of our catalog into Pidgin English, a local version of English that Nigerians speak with, which also helped people feel and generate more trust. But I think the biggest thing is, and it makes no sense to brands, especially the smaller ones. So to go to Berengere's question about DTC, I think the easiest way to grow attention initially is to get amongst the local audience via ambassadors. Also, the other thing that I would call out is that in most cases, you have marketplaces that have collection areas. So understanding whether you can advertise through or with them at those places. So finding highly trafficked, actual feet moving inside Nigeria is critical, because I cannot state, I don't have the English language to state how difficult it is to use traditional Google, Meta, Twitter, all of those, because unless you are viral or unless you are like 1xBet and you've found your way in via a advertising strategy via a specific sector like comedy, this is a really hard market to crack. I just wanted to add before I go, the recent development in Nigeria is also that Temu and Shein are also experimenting in accessing Chinese and Nigerian customers. These challenger cross-border marketplaces have also placed value upon the Nigerian market. So from a brand standpoint, I would also check whether Temu are opening up their local marketplace to Nigerian brands like they have done in South Africa. But yes, Nigeria is one of the more complicated markets to enter for a brand in Africa. I can tell you that because I've been there, done that, and got the T-shirt.
Thanks, Hendrik. Great. Berengere, any remarks there?
Yeah, no, I can't just. I just want to re-highlight one of the things Hendrik said. Cultural insight. Really knowing how brands fit into the competitors' landscape and in the culture of the market, the region, the town, and anything that you want to enter. This is both real, but that's also the only way to be really human, and to dive into that. So to bring on that, I just wanted maybe to ask Emmanuel a question that maybe came out of the blue. You may be surprised, Emmanuel, but is there a seasonal moment, celebrations that are very specific or very special for Nigeria than people outside of Nigeria would not think of? To plot that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question if you ask me. And I mean, the good thing about the Nigerian culture is that it's so diverse. So we absorb so many things, right? There's the Muslim culture that we absorb because of all the, the demography of the population. Obviously, around 49% are Muslims, right? So we adopt all of the holidays. And then there's obviously the Christian side, which again, because around 49% are Christians, we adopt all of that as well. But then also you have traditional cultures that have a way that they come in. So in the west of Nigeria, where you have the Yoruba people, they have their specific holidays. There was one that happened, I think it was last month. I forgot the name specifically, but it was quite a big deal where they had to shut down Lagos State to, celebrate it. And then you have in the East, you have some other kind of festivals like New Yam festivals, where, because yam used to be like a source of wealth back then. Yam is actually, it's in the same family as potatoes and cassava. Yeah. It's a big deal here. It used to be a source of wealth or a sign of wealth many years ago. And so this is still celebrated in the East. And things like that, those traditional events find a way in a row. But you also have the emotional events like Father's Day and Mother's Day. Yeah. This is a big topic here. I know in Europe it's like kind of like played down as normal, but here it's really a big deal. Mother's Day, Children's Day is also a day as well in this market. So again, like I said, there are the cultural elements, there are the international, national days, but there are also the emotional holidays that we celebrate. Sometimes they are not a day off in themselves, but they are acknowledged, they are attributed for, and they can be converted to marketing events if you have the right strategy.
That's good. And I imagine there is also a lot of gifting then going on. So
it's a big gifting culture.
Exactly.
And the good thing about the gifting culture is that it has no limit. Even food can be a gift.
Okay, no, that's great. No, that's great. It's great because it's just context, very important in terms of a purchase. But when, as a brand, when you come in and you come also as, yes, it's good for you, but also it's good to be gifted, then actually this opens to a lot of different purchase occasion and more beyond the first customer need.
Absolutely. And in fact, I tell you, for a lot of brands who try to penetrate, part of their strategy is gifting as well. Like, hey, you get this for free. Or like for telcos, they say, oh, you get a free SIM card, or you get your first 1,000, your first call credit for free. Or even banks, they tell you get this amount of money deposited into your account if you open with us. So there's that free element that is used to trigger, first-time purchase.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very nice. So we actually reached 43 minutes, and I'd love to have the community jumping in as well. So Vinod asked a question. Vinod, if you'd like to jump in, it would be an honor. I will share your question here on stage, but let me know if you'd like to jump in. You can write in the chat, and I'll add you also for questions. But what he's saying is, so the way North America and Europe underestimates the Nigerian market is because they view it under the lens of their own legacy technology baggage. Our payment rails used to be a differentiator, but that seems to be already disintermediated in Nigeria. So I think, yeah, he raised his hand. I believe he wants to join in. So I will add him to the chat. But in the meantime, I think it was more like a conclusion that he had there. So he joined the backstage. I'm gonna fetch him in the backstage. Hendrik, Berengere, just give me a moment. Vinod is joining me on stage now. Very cool. Just please open your mic, Vinod, and camera if you can as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Pardon me,
we
folks.
can
I'm
hear
just
you.
trying to figure out.
Turn on and off your
controls.
camera. Sometimes there's a, yeah, go ahead. Great.
Is it? Can you
Perfect.
hear me as well?
Brilliant.
Oh, excellent. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to step in. This has been an excellent
Sure.
conversation. I learned a lot about
Thank you.
Nigerian market that I did not know. Has a lot of similarities to the Indian market. So the point I was trying to make is there's more of a question and an observation. It sounds like in North America, at least, we take our current payment rails for granted, and all businesses are built around it. For example, if you wanted to start any new business, the payment rails put a 2.9% payment tax essentially on it. And that is taken for granted. It's part of the economics, the part of the mathematics that go into building an e-commerce business. But it sounds like in the Nigerian market, and certainly also in the South African market, the prevalence of direct money transfer, whether it being happening through ACH or other different payment rails, seems like that has disintermediated the 2.9% that is imposed by default on all payment transactions in North America. Obviously, volumes change that percentage, but that's the baseline here that we deal with. And and it sounds like because we take that for granted, for us in North America, that's a given. We underestimate these emerging markets because we still look at these markets with those foundations, as in those foundations still existing in these markets, which doesn't seem to be the case. Nigeria seems to have disintermediated that completely with direct payments well established. If direct payments are well established, then the opportunities are very different, and the constraints that the market has are not necessarily a direct linear relationship from what exists in the US. At least that's my observation. Related to that, my question that I did not pose in the box is, so given the current nature, what are the big swath of macro level opportunities that exist in Nigeria today? What are the pockets where things are still evolving, things are still taking shape? What are the big pockets of opportunity that exist in Nigeria today?
Yeah, Vino, thank you for first of all contributing the comment. I was just reading the thing you wrote there. Brilliant. And you're absolutely right, right? So I mean, like you made in comparison to North America and Europe, we in Nigeria, yeah, we took a different approach, which obviously means a different kind of challenges when you think of how remittances happen. But then when you talk about where do you still see the sweet spot? So retail is still, evolving here, even though we still have like a few players, some from South Africa that came, but it's still a huge space. I can tell you, I mean, you know as much as I do how Western spaces are. You have like grocery shops almost every 500 meters or 1 kilometer apart, even in the villages. Here you still have micro traders who have like some small stuff and they don't have enough. So there's still pockets for retail to come in and own that per 500 meters, per 1 kilometer, sort of like scaling. Then you also have travel. The travel space is fastly evolving, right? It's a space where the quality can be, in fact, I tell you one secret. If you can get the operations of travel right, you collect the market. That's still an area where the operations efficiency is still leaves a lot to be desired. It's not about your jet. It's not about what you give in flight. Just make people leave on time and arrive on time consistently. You take the market. It's there for the taking. The other area where you can actually see a lot of joy is in the food service. And the reason why the food service is a big deal is because we love our food. It's part of the culture here. And it's also integrated into other topics like music, culture, nightlife, drinking, which we are also quite a big drinking country. And so, anything you do around the experience of the food service sector, you're going to be in a good place. And I tell you a secret that most people don't know. The Lebanese, actually, they've done a great job perfecting that particular sector. It's not as known as this, but I tell you, the Lebanese, they rule the sector here, and the Indians too. It might interest you to know. Media is another area where it's still developing. It's a lot you can do there. I think with new technology, with AI, I think that there's so much we can do there. When you think about how you start gamifying VR, for example, an AI touch point, I think that's something you can add as an upside and really take the market to another level as well. Healthcare is healthcare. I think it's important in every sector. Technology is fastly evolving. I tell you, just in the space of December to March, when I was in Lagos, I already attended 4 events, and they were all about tech in all aspects. In fact, they even have a tech event. They call it No Code. So basically, they celebrate no code technology. And I tell you, it's an annual event. It's big. It has sponsors, and they do really well there, right? So these are other areas that you can look at as well. Of course, commerce is commerce. People transact every day and all that. So when you look at areas where you could potentially play in, this area has come to mind.
Very cool. Thank you. Let's speak about perhaps the final block. I mean, I think we touched a bit already on it, but so a few questions. How do consumers transact? Where does friction still exist, which means opportunity? And what are international companies misunderstanding, in your opinion?
So how consumers transact? Like I said, it's a bag of many things, right? But what I have noticed in the past few years is that I'm seeing less cash than it used to be many years ago. So, Nigeria is becoming a very cashless country. You almost can't go through a whole week without needing cash. And how people transact, bank transfer is the quickest one. In fact, one of the first questions they will ask you is, do you take transfers? So it's very efficient. I did a lot of bank transfers just going out today to do some stuff out of home. And you just get the bank details transferred. And like I said earlier on, the process is so intelligent that even the POS machine makes a sound when the money goes in. So there's that trust factor again that kind of alerts you that this money has gone in, but also alerts the seller that they've received the money. It's quick, it happens in milliseconds. There is also the card element where people pay with the card. It's growing significantly. People do that as well. So how people pay, these are ways they pay. We call it pay small, but in Europe, it's kind of like buy now, pay later. It's gradually coming. We're now seeing some fintech businesses coming in and saying, hey, we can take away the payment burden out of you for now, and you can pay gradually. But that area still needs some bit of work to really make it part of your payment strategy. But as far as direct transfer is concerned or card transfer is concerned, you can do that, right? Where do you still see friction? I think friction still happens from my point of view again, in how businesses understands the market, particularly international brands. For brands who have come to, like Chodek, not Chodek, Glovo. Glovo is a Spanish brand. And what Glovo has come to do is Glovo has come to localize themselves in a way that I was shocked to be in the street of Lagos and I saw thousands of people riding bicycles delivering food. If you had told me this will be a thing in 2020, I will tell you that you're a dreamer. That's the reality. But how did Glovo do that? They came, they understood the market, they understood the intricacies, and they localized themselves. And I think that's really where international brands still struggle. They don't localize enough. Speak the language. Hendrik talked about the pidgin. Pidgin is a very key language here, and you're gonna open many doors if you just are able to communicate in that language. So even in the messaging, you try to keep it as local as possible. I think the businesses still see some friction. The infrastructure itself, try not to make the infrastructure to be too Western oriented, where people have to do this and validate that and go here and all of those stuff. The Nigerian system is still very informal, and it's not informal because people don't, or people are not educated or don't want to move forward. It's just that the average Nigerian thinks, if I can do this way, why do I have to go around in circles to get there? So the informality is just a cultural nuance. It's nothing about standards or education. So I think if you can also understand that informality and integrate it into your GTM process, that's something that can help, reduce frictions as well. I hope I'm able to cover all the questions, Carlos. If there's anyone that
No,
I didn't touch on.
no, I think it's fascinating. Well, and as you speak, I'm starting to think about Brazil and what I see here. And I'm based in Denmark, by the way. Vinod, we didn't speak. I think Gustavo spoke to you, but it's so interesting how culture matters. Like the question that Berengere, she asked you about the calendar, like for example, we have members in Egypt, and they start working in Egypt on Sunday, which is very similar to Israel. And, so those basic nuances that you have no idea, and you're completely blinded when you're talking to people. And then I have no problems getting messages every day because we have the Evolve Commerce Club, but all of a sudden I get a message from Marva on a Sunday, and she's like, hey, I'm like, what's up? And it's like Monday for her, like, oh, okay. So those small things are really interesting. And to your point about Glovo, like understanding that this is a mobile first economy. By the way, Glovo could not succeed in Brazil given iFood. So iFood started to sort of dominate the market, and they started buying companies, and so they gave up on Brazil. So iFood is really dominant in Brazil. Glovo took another route, and I think they became dominant in Romania, Hungary, and other markets where they wouldn't have such a fierce competition. But they took the mobile, probably the understanding that those economies are mobile first economies, right? So that probably helped a lot, and very interesting points. Perhaps the final block that we have here, and that's awesome because we didn't touch AI. So we managed to have more than an hour conversation without talking about AI. No offense, but I think it's great. Just the board level lens. This is a very senior community, and we try always to ask what boards and senior advisors are still missing about Nigeria. And if you were, that's my final question for you. So what are they missing? And if you were advising a commerce company entering Nigeria tomorrow, what would you avoid copying from Europe or the US? And then I'll leave then also Vinod and Berengere to finish this conversation with me. But that's my final question for you.
The first thing I would say, and that's at the risk of sounding like a broken record, is forget everything you know. You need to unlearn everything you've learned about, Europe or North America, and just appreciate the market for what the market really is. That's the first thing. The second thing is, don't try to measure standards and judge standards, because what you might think is right is not particularly wrong, and vice versa, right? So that's one thing I would say to Western leaders who want to come into Nigeria. That's the first point, just the mindset, right? And then once the mindset is in place, then the next thing you see is you have a population that is averaging 18 years. If you do the right thing, these guys will grow with you. So that means you have the possibility of a lifetime value of your customers going in almost into their whole lifetime. So it's like almost raising a child, if you let me use that analogy, right? So the brands who are able to do this, and I tell you a stupid example, Bolt. You wouldn't believe that a Bolt from a small Estonia country is the dominant player here. So the companies that come in here understand that and take advantage of the parameters of the market. They're able to scale so easily because the market just wants the value that you promised them. And as long as the value is there, they are obviously going to stick with you, and they see no reasons to go anywhere else. Uber has tried to come and try to shake off, but they've still not been able to take out the market from Bolt. Another local competitor, no, not local, but they localized it in Drive. They came, but still people know that Bolt is the superior player in that market space. So, like I said, it's a young market. They have the possibility of growing with you if you make them happy. The other thing, again, is you talked about mobile first, but mobile first is not just the fact that they have mobile devices in their hands. Mobile first also mean that they are quite digitally savvy. Nigerians are teaching themselves every day on the internet, self-teaching. You know, they have clusters of like micro teachers now, and also like creating WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, teaching people virtual assistant skill, data analytics skill, teaching them marketing skills, you know, and all of these different skills. In fact, I tell you, in recent time, I've had at least 10 people add me, young Nigerians, and their job title is workflow automation. So even when you talk about AI, these guys are already self-teaching themselves, organizing small communities and learning. So the mobile first is not just mobile first because they have a mobile device, it's also mobile first with digital literacy. And that's one part that I want to also add as well. And of course, the payments, we've talked about that over and over again. It's a mature system. It's very easy to remit transactions as soon as it happens. And also you have a government that is now very aware of the importance of allowing this country to be open to foreign investors, and the local policies are also being done to enable that. So that's for also the macroeconomic environment as well. You know, so when you put all these factors in perspective, you know, if you're a senior leader looking to come into the market, looking to come into Nigeria, this already obviously creates the bedding ground to make you succeed.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emmanuel, and Berengere and Vinod. Perhaps you have final remarks and questions just to wrap this up. This was amazing, really good.
Yeah, no, I think, thank you very much, Emmanuel. I think it was very, very insightful. I think we dive into the reality of the customer experience there, as well as both the opportunity and some of the things we really need to think change in the mindset. So I do love, you know, all we've gone through. Personally, just Carlos, what I would just add, we talked about culture, we talked about you know, strategy in terms of which marketplaces, where to push that there, social, we talked about WhatsApp. I was just thinking, listening to you, Emmanuel, there's also something relatively obvious, but in big company and in big market, there is also quite a lot of people from Nigeria outside of Nigeria. Which means that, you know, in our work, in our companies behind her, around us, there are also connections with Nigeria that sometimes we completely have forgotten. And so, in a business development perspective, I would encourage, you know, everyone to think about that. Think also about their own people that they may have that have a connection to learn even more about how to be successful there.
Absolutely.
Great insight. Thank you, Berengere. Vinod?
Well, thank you. This was a delightful conversation. I learned a lot. What I take away from this conversation is that the core principle of understanding the consumer's need and serving to that need does not change by market. What changes is what defines value. What is the value that the consumer defines for themselves? In the case of Nigeria, the fluidity of payment, for example, seems like a core value proposition. The social aspect, the communal aspect of forming smaller groups, the aspect of relying on conversational rather than websites. So those are valuable, certainly not of major value in the United States, but certainly valuable in Nigeria. So if brands were to see that and figure out how to deliver the value that they deliver to their consumers elsewhere to the Nigerian market through this structure that exists in the market, then that seems to be the core driver of success for these brands in those markets. That's my fundamental takeaway. It's a poorly constructed sentence, but it's very clear to me what the commonalities and the differences are. And Emmanuel, thank you very much for very gracefully sort of taking us through that logic to get us to that conclusion. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you,
much,
Vinod.
man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Emmanuel, if time to sell, so if people want to know more about you and your company, what's the best way?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I already shared my profile here. I'm on LinkedIn. Like I said, I've spent the past decade plus in revenue operations strategy growth across the whole revenue engine, and I'm more than happy to collaborate. You know, if you're looking to go into Nigeria, if you want to learn more about the market, I'm more than happy to guide you in that journey. But also, if you're looking to optimize whatever it is you're running as a business or as a brand, and you're looking for that expert eye to help you, you know, streamline, I'm also more than happy to support you in that conversation. So yeah, but Carlos, thank you for having me here. It's been such a great pleasure, and I want to put it on the record here so that the community can anticipate it. But look forward to having an Evolve event in Nigeria.
We'll do, absolutely. We'll talk in private about it. But thanks, man, and I appreciate your time. Berengere, Vinod, thank you all. And I'll see you all next week. Thanks very much. This was amazing.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.